In 2018, following the devastating events of 2017, the Virgin Islands Recovery and Development Agency was created to facilitate the recovery of public infrastructure, build capacity, and project finance in collaboration with the government of the Virgin Islands and the wider community. Today, on the 5th anniversary since Hurricane Irma, we look back on the progress that has been made on the recovery front, and I'm joined by the RDA CEO, Mr. Anthony McMaster, to highlight the RDA's impact on the recovery. Mr. McMaster, glad we can do this interview. Happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Ms. Penn, and it's a pleasure to be here today to speak to the BVI community and provide an update for where we are 5 years after the passage of Hurricanes Irma and Maria.
Brilliant. Let's start with a little definition. Remind persons who we are as an agency and what we were created to do.
Well, as you know, the RDA, Recovery and Development Agency of the Virgin Islands, was basically an implementation tool that the government strategically designed and put in place to assist with the recovery efforts of the territory following the hurricanes. The agency is basically just an offshoot of the government. It works in partnership with the ministries. There is no competition, but there's collaboration. And we work together to allow both sides to be able to focus on the territory moving forward while dealing with the daily operations needed for the territory to function and for the recovery efforts to take place.
Now, a big part of our mandate is capacity building, and our capacity building focuses both on people and infrastructure. Can you speak more to that?
In terms of capacity building, yes, it's basically a two-pronged exercise. First, we dealt with the contractors and trying to get our contractors up to a level where they would be able to compete at internationally accepted standards, so they'll be able to perform at that level. As you can see, as an example, this project that we are standing by now, which is the Ballast Bay Road project. Pretty certain persons would remember that many years ago, this was basically a one lane going around the corner, and the two vehicles could not pass at the same time. In addition to that, as a result of the flooding, etc., from the area, persons in the lower Ballast Bay area would have always been affected by such. So in the process of this, we had our contractors, which was locally based, who went through the program of training for capacity building at the RDA, so that they were able to put tender documents together. Because one thing we have to accept is that in the BVI, our people can build. Building is nothing new to them. However, the thing that made the difference is that in the modern world, you have to not just be able to build in the field, but you have to actually be able to project on paper what you are going to do in the field. And that's where the RDA was instrumental in helping our contractors to be able to take what they will do in the field and put it on paper, so that persons who are evaluating it from an international perspective, not your local brothers and sisters or cousins, but persons outside of the BVI who has absolutely no idea who the contractors are, but will be able to look at the documentation that they have produced and say, these people know what they're doing. This contractor knows exactly what he's doing, how he's going to go about putting this particular project on the ground from on the paper, and it will come out making sense. And that is one aspect of the capacity building that we did. And I'm pleased to say that we have had several contractors. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's over 115 contractors, project managers, other consultants who have came through the capacity building program of the RDA. Prior to the RDA implementing such programs, the contractors in the BVI had a very difficult time even getting acceptance from CDB, which is a regional body, to be able to produce documentation that would have gotten them the opportunity to actually work on CDB projects. Now we have over 15 contractors in the BVI who are able to produce such documentation to such a high standard that not just CDB, but even the Foreign and Commonwealth Office of the UK have looked at the processes that some of these contractors have put together, the tender documents. And we have gotten back feedback such as, these documents are nothing short of what we are accustomed to seeing in the UK and from other international bidders. So we're pleased that our local contractors are now able to produce at that standard. And as a result, what we do is we can also encourage our contractors now to look at the next level for them, which is to actually export their services. So while the 15 who are able to qualify are now in a position to be able to export their services, what we're looking for is the partnership with those contractors to continue the process of capacity building, to bring younger contractors, younger tradesmen, younger subcontractors under their remit to help train them up so that they too can build their expertise and move to the next level.
So that is a contractor workshop, and that's a big difference we made with contractors. Speak about the internship program.
As well as the contractors, we do have an internship program at the RDA, and what we do with that program is that we actually bring in young professionals, persons who may be in high school, they're not quite certain where they want to go in their career path. So we give them an opportunity to work alongside the professionals at the RDA so that they can get exposure in regards to what the RDA does, what the construction field looks like, whether it is project management, it's financing for projects, it's writing business case, it's consideration of the environment and how the works of the agency or the contractors impact the environment and how that is going to be protected. So that gives them an idea as to what career opportunities they can have coming out of high school and then going into college. And then we have a step up where you have persons who are already in college. They've already made a decision as to where they would like their career path to take them. And by coming to the RDA, they're now able to take the practical, what we actually do on the ground with the contractors, with the professionals in the office, with consultants. And then they're able to now apply what they have learned in the classrooms into the field. And as such, what we've seen is that quite a number of the interns that have worked with the RDA, they have found it to be very, very useful. And as a matter of fact, we've had 2 or 3 persons who have asked for repeat interns because they have gone further in their studies and they now wanted the same opportunity to now apply at a bigger level or higher level.
That sounds excellent. And just to say, the RDA internship program is a year-round program. It's not limited to the summer months. All year round, interns can apply to be a part of the RDA internship. Now, projects. That's one of the big things we're known for. And we're right now standing on the site of one of the first joint venture projects that the RDA did. Let's speak about projects and let's go back to one of the first projects we would have done, or project activities I should say, because it's important the public knows we have projects and we have project activities. And the activities are sub-projects within the main project. So A.O. Shirley, the track, the rubberized resurfacing of the track, that was a joint partnership we did with some local organizations. Speak about that project and the impact it had, one of the first projects that we did from the RDA.
Yes, thank you for that question. Of course, yes, we do a lot of projects, and depends on the size of the projects. What we do is we break them down into activity levels so that they can be phased. It's a phase implementation program. So we did the A.O. Shirley grounds rebuild or rehabilitation, if you want to call it that. And as you have correctly said, at a point in time where the hurricanes passed in September, and then we had upcoming international events taking place from as early as March. So one of the first things we did is we brought a consortium together where we had international expertise as Mundo, who was a supplier of the track. Then we had Quality Construction and a few other contractors who were on the ground. And they were able to rehabilitate the track surface itself so that within a matter of 2 months, the athletes were able to go back out and train on the surface. Of course, that was one activity, and then we had other activities where we looked at the stadium to provide seating to make sure that persons who are coming to spectate and support the athletes have some level of comfort and safety so that they're not in the way of the athletes while trying to support the athletes. Other activities includes, for example, the bathroom fixtures that we've put in so the athlete has proper changing areas and what's not. There's another activity that we have coming on stream which has to do with the whole pavilion and rebuilding the pavilion. That is something that we are currently doing in partnership with the Recreation Trust. But of course, because the RDA is always thinking about building smarter, it's thinking about building better. We're looking at greener because we always want to preserve the environment and stronger. So our projects are not projects that we just think up and within 2 months you see feet on the ground or shovels in the ground and they're going. There's quite a bit of planning behind of it to ensure that we consult with the stakeholders, the users, the owners for what they expect at the end of the day. And of course, we're thinking about resiliency in the long run, because every project that the RDA is a part of, we try to design it with a minimum life of at least 50 years, so that it's not that we spend $1 million, $2 million, $3 million on a project and then 2 years later you have issues with it. We try to build projects with minimum lifespan of 30 to 50 years with proper maintenance. Then we should not be, as a territory or as a country, spending the same funds on the same set of projects over and over again.
And Athletics Association, Olympic Committee, Recreation Trust, Ministry of Education, those are some of our main partners with that first project. That was the second project actually, because we did the special degree clearance before that. But we can't even list all the projects, so we're just going to highlight some of the main projects that we've done within the years we've been established from 2018 until now. Let's talk about sea markers. That project was a territory-wide project that impacted the whole community, especially the marine industry, and it was focused on the tourism sector.
Yes, of course. Again, after the hurricane, it's about bringing the territory back to a state of readiness where economic activity could take place. And being a tourist destination, the focus was on how do we get the territory back up to speed so that we can start to entertain visitors again, so that our visitors, our long-term visitors, even the short-term visitors, could actually come and partake of the territory. So we did the Sea Markers project with the marine industry and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Labor. And what we were able to do is put in proper nautical devices, buoys, if you want to call them that, we refer to them as sea markers, to ensure that the yachting industry could actually traverse the bays, getting into the harbors, whether it is King Garden Bay, White Bay, Just Van Dyke, the settlement in Anegada, even Trellis Bay in Beef Island. And while I'm at Trellis Bay in Beef Island, I know there was quite a bit of concern with some of the industry when it came to Trellis Bay because of where the markers were located. But the markers were located there because, as I've said, the way in which the RDA operate is about futuristic. And considering the airport expansion that the government intends to take on, then the whole marker system had to be aligned with the future development of the airport. So while some people may not have understood why markers were placed in certain areas, it was all with the concept and the thinking that what will this place look like 30, 50 years from now? And that is what that was designed to do, to ensure that person got accustomed to what the future will be and not necessarily what is there today and now. So it's not about always being the comfort of today, but it's about the future. And the RDA is always about the future.
Building for resilience, future focused. Let's go to the different islands. We have done projects throughout the BVI. We've done projects on Virgin Gorda, Anegada, Just Van Dyke. Let's start with Anegada and the Theodore Faulkner Administration Building.
Okay, thank you. Yes, as you've correctly said, we have done projects on each of the main sister islands, the 4 islands. And again, we try to take a balanced approach in the way in which we do our development. And this is done strategically by speaking to our agencies in government or colleagues in government. What is the balanced approach? How can we make sure that all the development is not taking place on one island while foregoing another island? Because at the end of the day, it is to keep the entire territory running at the same time. So on Anegada, the focus was on the Theodore Faulkner Administration Building because we needed to get the government services back up and running. We realized that that was most important for Anegada at the time, because the Anegadians, unfortunately, every transaction that they need to do, they would have to come to Tatola. It's not like Virgin Gorda, where you have 3 or 4 ferries operating and you can go to Virgin Gorda at basically any time of the day. Anegada is a little bit different, so we wanted to bring some relief to the people of Anegada so that they can continue and get back to a state of normalcy as quick as possible. So we did that facility there. It's now up and running, and I'm pretty certain the people of Anegada are quite happy with the results of what that has produced. But while I'm on Anegada, I would not leave Anegada without saying that we were actually able to also bring back the recreational ground on Anegada, so that the children can also have a place to de-stress themselves. Because again, you don't want to just keep people locked down, whether at home or within the village themselves, but you want to give them an outlet where they can utilize some of the excess energy and therefore keep them out of trouble. So we are proud that we have been able to do these works on Anegada. And on Anegada, especially with the sports facility, we had funding partners like Unite BVI. Unite BVI has been very instrumental in helping to fund the recreational redevelopment facilities in the BVI. So they've done quite a bit in terms of funding for Anegada. They've done some for Virgin-Gorda and even here on Tatola. So we're proud to have partners like Unite BVI with such projects. The RDA is also here to obtain funding from potential donors, and we try to match projects with where donors may have an interest. So that is why Unite BVI was able to provide funding for sporting, because they wanted to ensure that the children had proper recreational facilities where they could be safe and enjoy themselves at the same time.
As we're on the topic of funding, Elmer Stout High School, the music classrooms there, that was a project that was jointly funded by Unite BVI, BVI Alliance, and Maples BVI. So and you did speak about funding, so I'm glad you spoke about that, because the funding that the RDA gathers is in collaboration with the community and partners who help to seek out the best projects that their funds can be applied to. Back to the sister islands, Virgin-Gorda, we've done so much projects. We've done CDB projects, reservoirs and roads. If we stay here talking about all the projects, we will never complete our interview. So I don't know if you want to just briefly touch on the different projects or elaborate some more.
Well, as you rightfully said, there are quite a number of projects that we've done. I think if my memory serves me right, we were given a portfolio of 43 projects / activities, and we've actually completed 30. So we've completed between 65 to 70% of the projects that have been given to us to date, and we're currently working on a few others. And as we're working on those, we're also having discussions with our lead ministry, the Premier's office, under the leadership of the Premier, with other projects that he has an interest in the RDA taking forward, because I think the Premier understands the consideration for separation, to allow his permanent secretary to be able to focus on operations on a daily basis and not have to worry so much about getting the projects designed and getting them actually implemented. And as you speak about the sister islands, not to go away from it, on Virgin-Gorda, we did quite a bit of work with the administration buildings over there. So we were able to get the government employees back into proper shelter and accommodations. Correct. So that they can function. Even before the hurricane, the Virgin-Gorda public officers had challenges with mold and different issues in those facilities. That's now a thing of the past. We've remedied that sort of situation. We've brought the buildings up to modern standard and with modern technology. What is required is that as a people, as a territory, we actually maintain the facilities. Because if we don't maintain the facilities, then we're going to end up in trouble, because we're going to digress to where we came from. So at the RDA, what we do is that we don't just build a facility and turn it over. We actually produce a proper maintenance manual, which is also turned over to the owner / users, so that they know exactly how to maintain whatever equipment that we have put into the facilities, so that there should be no issues in terms of the facilities themselves being degraded in a short period if those manuals are followed. Moving on a little bit from Virgin-Gorda, because we did do quite a bit on Virgin-Gorda. I think, as a matter of fact, I spent you on Virgin-Gorda the other day. You were speaking about the Jeffrey Kane sports facility and how interesting it was, and how many people, even from Tatola, attended the sports that they had there on that night. So that was lovely. And of course, we did the bats. We were able to assist Recreation Trust again, along with the tourist board, with putting in shelters and rest stops for persons who are actually enjoying the bats. So we've done quite a bit on Virgin-Gorda, and we will continue to work with the ministries and the representatives from the different areas to do such.
So, at a glance, that's 3 admin buildings: North Sung, Flax and Vanterpool.
That is correct.
You spoke about the baths. We did the Brigado Flax Educational Center.
That is correct.
And the Jeffrey Kane Sports Arena. And that's just the Virgin Garden project that the RDA was able to execute.
Yes. And as we move down a little bit more to the west to Just Van Dyke, of course, we were able to re-establish the administration building on Just Van Dyke, getting the police, immigration, the district officer and others back into proper office facilities so that they can conduct their business, and they're able to now do so in comfort. That was a project that we did in partnership with the UK FCDO. So they provided some assistance and some funds to help to facilitate that project. In addition to that, we are now embarking on another project on Just Van Dyke, which is probably the biggest single most invested project that the government of the BVI would be investing in Just Van Dyke for this period. And that is the development of what I refer to as the Just Van Dyke Multipurpose Educational Facility. Most of us know it as a Just Van Dyke Primary School, but it's not just classrooms. It's a lot more than classrooms. You're gonna have facilities where you can have community meetings. You're gonna have a resource center. So not just the children, but even the adults can go in, do computer labs, do research if they need to do research. And with the technology that that school would have in at the end of the development, even persons on Just Van Dyke who wants to do programs at HLSCC, the facilities will be there to help to accommodate those facilities, that service being provided, and even doing online schooling to the wider world, whether it's a school in the UK or whatever the case is, the facilities will be able to accommodate such. In addition to those, we have the auditorium where they can have community meetings, right? As you know, there's no place on Just Van Dyke at the moment where the community can meet to discuss any potential issues, or even where the government may want to speak to the people of Just Van Dyke, they always have to revert to using a private facility. So this facility opens a whole gamut of new opportunities for Just Van Dyke and the Just Van Dyke community. In addition, of course, the students, the children will be the key beneficiaries of this project because they'll have their new school facilities, so they'll be no longer in tents and trailers and dilapidated buildings. They would actually have a proper facility, library services, they'll even have a sick bay. So if they're not feeling quite well, they can actually go someplace to rest while their parents are still at work, so that the parents don't have to leave their job to now come and get the kids to take them home. But in addition to that, we're talking about new modern playground equipment as well, being as a part of this project, which would allow the kids, not just during the school hours, but I'm pretty certain the Just Van Dyke community will take care of the project, and the kids would have better access to those equipment as well outside of regular school hours. So we're proud to partner with the government, and despite the conversations about the potential cost at the moment, I want us to not stress about the cost, but stress about what is the end product that is expected. Because I think the one thing all of us can appreciate, especially the people on the Sister Islands, a bag of flour on Tortola might cost $2.50. But by the time you get it to one of the Sister Islands and you have to purchase it, it's probably $3.50 or even $4. So just the concept of development on the Sister Islands is very much more expensive than on Tortola itself, right? So sometimes I know we hear figures and we don't think about everything that's aligned with those figures and where the figures came from. But what I can assure you is that at the RDA, everything is done in a process where it's transparent and above board. So all of our processes are laid out. And step by step, each process goes through a check and balance. In addition to that, which is most important, all of our projects are competitively bidded. So it is not a case where anyone from the RDA or the RDA board or even the government can say, well, this is the contractor that we're going to use for this particular project. No, at the RDA, all of our projects are tendered, they're publicly tendered, the tenders are submitted, they're publicly opened, and all of the figures are stated right there in the public domain, so each person who has an interest can know what the bids were that were actually received, right? So when we hear the figures are not just something that somebody pull out of the sky, right? These contractors are competing for jobs. So when the figures come in, we feel assured at the RDA that we are in fact getting value for money, because in addition to what the contractors produce, the consultants that we work with, they also have to produce estimates. So we have a pretty good idea, even before we go to tender, what something should cost. And we know whether or not we're going to be getting value for money based on what the user requirements are, because that is also key. We do not just design something or build something because we feel it is what is best. We do consultation with the community, with the users, with the government, so that these different facets have an opportunity to weigh in on what the product is that they're looking for. Even in regards to Just Van Dyke Primary School, we had discussions with the Ministry of Education, the teachers on the Just Van Dyke School facility, even teachers on Tatola, because teachers rotate from school to school. So it's important that there's a body representing what a school facility should look like. We've had discussions also with the Just Van Dyke community. We did the schematic plans. We went back to Just Van Dyke. We had discussions with the Just Van Dyke community to make sure that they saw what was being considered for Just Van Dyke, and they had an opportunity to weigh in, whether they were in support of it, they weren't in support of it, whether they think that they were being shortchanged because we didn't consider something that should be considered, or whatever the case is. And once that whole process was finished, we would have done a cost estimate on everything, submit it to the government and say, okay, based on what was required through the stakeholder consultation, etc., this is the projected cost for this project. Tell us whether it's a go or no go. So the government would then have an opportunity to review all that information to make sure they're satisfied with what has been done, the process that it has taken, and say, yes, we are comfortable, we understand what the budgetary implications are, but as a territory, it's worth the investment, let's go.
Brilliant, quite impressive. Glad you showed that multi-pronged approach and the inclusivity of the RDA process to projects. Now, as we conclude today's interview, are there any final words you would like to leave with our viewers with regards to where we are now, 5 years since Hurricane Irma? If persons remember back, that was such a low time in the BVI's existence, and now we can see the fruits of the labor, especially the RDA's impact on the recovery.
Well, thank you for that. And that's an interesting question and an interesting way to sort of bring the interview to a close, because what I would like to remind people of is that after Irma, everywhere that we looked, even here where we are now standing, everything was brown. You could see every rock. You could probably count every rock on this whole hillside after Irma. There was probably maybe 10% of the houses within the BVI that actually had roofs on them. Roads, I don't have to speak about this road. I think everybody in Ballast Bay and even in the wider BVI know what the impact to the roads were. So the one thing I would really like to stress is that from time to time I hear people say, well, when is the recovery going to be over? When is this process going to be finished? The RDA had a lifespan of 5 years. Is it the government's intent to wrap up the RDA and turn projects back over to the ministries? That particular question is something for the government to decide on. But what I would like to share for everyone is that recovery and development is not a 3-year, a 4-year, or even a 5-year program. And if you consider the BVI with the projected or the estimated damages that we had after the 2017 hurricanes was almost something in the region of $2.3 billion. That's if I remember the figures correctly. In my estimation, to think that we could actually rebuild the entire territory, even just the government infrastructure within 5 years at a tune of $500 million or even $750 million within 5 years, with the capacity in the BVI, with the low labor resources within the BVI, I would tell anybody that it was impossible. And I'm not afraid or fearful of saying it was impossible and it could not have happened. Because when you consider the planning, proper planning for a project, the surveys that has to be done for roads, the testing that you have to do in terms of the soil to make sure it's correct, the design works, the tendering processes, etc., all of these things take time. And even with all of that, you then have resource constraints because we have a limited amount of contractors. So while some people may say, well, we could have done this, we could have done that to get whether it's this financing or that financing, and we could have fast-tracked some of these things, then you have to ask yourself, who would have been the end beneficiary? Yes, we would have had the infrastructure, but we would have had to bring in resources from external. And of course, when you bring in external resources, then the financial benefits goes external as well. The process that the BVI decided to adopt was one where we slowed it down and said, based on the financing available, let's look at which are the critical projects. And critical projects can be agreed or disagreed because depends on where you are. You may say, well, this one is more urgent than that one. But the decision makers make the decision. We trust them with the decisions that they make. That's why we elected them to office, because we trusted them. So as a result of that, we took an approach where we developed projects based on what funds we had available, based on the criticalness or the urgency of each of those projects. And we were able to get to where we are today. We have administration buildings complete and a lot of public officers are back in the comfort of working. We have several roads that were severely undermined and pose a very significant dangerous driving condition for motorists and even persons who are walking. We've completed quite a number of roads. I'm pretty certain we can all say as a territory we are proud to see the roads that we have now. We like the way in which they're designed, and we can see that these roads are definitely stronger than what was there before. So there's no question about that. We've completed sporting facilities so that the children and even adults within the territory can enjoy some downtime outside of work time. So that is very good. And as we look into the future, we are now on the verge of completing the Elmo Stout High School Senior Division, which will then bring the Senior Division back onto the Elmo Stout High School campus. And that is something I think we all should be proud of, because while we may say, well, it took too long, we have to remember that everything takes time. And it's just a matter of us finding the resources and then moving along. So the government found the resources, they asked the RDA to implement it, we've implemented it, and we hope to turn it over to the government in the next couple of weeks. And the students will be in a very safe, comfortable environment, and their learning can go on. As we look into the future, all I can say is, as a territory, we have to remain strong. We have to remain smart in what we're doing, because it is easy for us to hear all the different options available. And sometimes it's easy to say we're going to go with this option or that option. But we need to understand what are the benefits and the disadvantages of each option. And at the RDA, we present at least 3 options for every possible problem. And based on those options, we tell you what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and how they can be done, which is most economical, so that the government can make the decision that it needs to make. The RDA will continue to work in partnership with the government. As I said, we're not competitors, we're partners. We work hand in hand with the ministries. We focus on project development and implementation so that the PSAs and their staff can focus on policies, operations, making sure you, the public, have access to the services of government. And I think we can agree that if a PS, and if I use, for example, the Elmo South High School, even the project that we're doing now, if the PS for Education and her senior team had to do the work that the RDA did in the background to make that project a reality, then they will not be able to grapple with the fact that you now have several other schools that they had to disperse students in order to get them into school for September, right? So that shows how we're able to collaborate to ensure that the territory as a whole is able to continue moving forward, as opposed to you going forward one piece while another piece is left behind. So now, while the school is being finished so that the students can return, the ministry is able to disperse all the students so that they can begin their learning for September. So the RDA is partnering with the government. The staff is highly committed and they work beyond. I can tell you, it's now at the point of taping this, it's 7 a.m. But you can see the staff is here, we're working. And they were working late into the evening to make sure that all of this was prepared so that we can be here. At 6 a.m. this morning, the staff was in the office working with the contractors in regards to the Elmo South High School. So at the RDA, it's not 8:30 to 4:30, it's not 9 to 5. It's about getting the job done. And that's what we do at the RDA. The staff is committed and we could not do what we did, what we've been able to do so far, and what we're planning to do if we didn't have the support and the commitment of the staff. So while my face might be the one that you're seeing now, trust me, I am not the RDA. The RDA is Miss Penn and Dr. Smith and all the other persons in the background who do so much work that you will not see, so that we could actually be able to enjoy these projects when they're completed. So I just want to conclude by saying thank you to the staff of the RDA for their commitment and their sustained fortitude to get these things done, and to the BVI community for having patience, because I know when you want to get home and the road is blocked, you're like, why do these people don't get out of our way? We want to get home. But patience, because with patience comes this, and we're able to reap the benefits of it after. And most importantly, I'd like to thank the government of the Virgin Islands for having the faith and the confidence in the RDA to allow the RDA and its staff to continue to be its implementation arm, so that while they're focusing on policies and thinking about the future of the territory and what needs to happen next, they don't have to worry about the things that they've turned over to the RDA, because they know that they're in good hands and they're going to get done 9 out of 10 times on time and within budget. And on that note, I'll say one last thing. The RDA is all about transparency. Our website provides access to every single thing that we do, all the documents that are there. So members of the public, feel free to peruse our website, look at any documents that you want to look at, and we're open to questions, because at the end of the day, we work for you. So any questions that are there, we will answer. And thank you very much.
Mr. McMaster, thank you so much. You gave us a lot to process, explaining the role of the RDA, showing our impact on the recovery. Lovely kudos and commendations to your staff and the team who support you in all that you do. And we would like to thank you for your role as our leader in seeing the recovery efforts what they are now. And we look forward to what the future holds with the RDA, BVI government, BVI community working together to get our country back to tip-top position with all our recovery projects executed.